Mike, I'm excited to have you on. I love bringing on business coaches too, especially somebody like you that is still fitness coaching. Like I feel very connected already because I still do that.
Yeah, I think we might be like the only ones. I don't know of many other business coaches that still have their nutrition or fitness businesses. Like most of them are like, I scaled and now I'm a business coach. And you're like, well, did you or did it not work out? So you pivoted.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on is because like you're spicy. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to sugarcoat shit on here. So, there is a parental advisory label on my podcast, so like feel free to say whatever you want. But jokes aside, I agree with you. I mean, there's not many business coaches that I would trust to even do my macros, you know?
Completely. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so what I want to do on this episode, kind of like I told you before we got started, but for you guys listening, we're going to dive into some of your specialties when it comes to like email marketing because that's a lot of what I see you talking about, but just also some just coaching questions for how you got started, things we're loving in the industry, things we're not loving so much, and just going to go back and forth as two business coaches just, shooting the shit on a Monday afternoon. You know what I mean? Um, so I want to kick it off by saying, how did you get your first 25 clients? Take me back to the beginning. Tell me all the messy shit that you did.
Yeah, well, I actually started as an in-person trainer. I worked at a very small local gym that was like maybe 3,000 square feet or smaller. And I did like group fitness classes. And then I moved to more like semi-private, one-on-one training. And when I found my passion was more on the nutrition side because that was like my own personal struggle. I have a long history of disordered eating and dieting on and off for many, many years before I like got my own shit together. So I realized that most of the people at the gym that I was working with, they would show up to all of their sessions. They never missed a workout, but they kept looking the same. And typically there's the nutrition component that a lot of people ignore. So I was like, all right, that's really what I want to focus on. And that was where I first started. I just was like people at the gym who trusted me, that they were my personal training clients. I was like, hey, do you mind? I'm just like learning this whole nutrition thing. And I think I've got something going here, but I want to test it out on real humans and see if I know what I'm doing. So that was after getting certified and going through, the education side. And then I was just experimenting with clients. And actually, my first ever nutrition coaching client is now my wife. We weren't married at the time, but she was like a super hyper responder. It was insane. Like
My
every,
face right now, if you're not watching this on YouTube, just like, what?
yeah,
Okay.
like literally everything that I did, she got leaner and was respond. I'm like, this is so easy. Like everybody's gonna respond this way. And then I learned, not so much. And like all these other people who were working with me weren't getting the same results. And then I was like, okay, there's more that I need to learn about coaching. And that was actually what got me into more quote unquote mindset. And I've been talking about mindset before it became a buzzword and like mainstream and people started butchering it. But I realized like I started working as a personal trainer. Then I actually got hired as a nutrition coach for a company that actually just recently closed its doors. It was called Eat to Perform. And they hired me as a nutrition coach. And I like worked my way up there. I was getting paid like $50 a week to do nutrition coaching with like hundreds of clients. And eventually I worked my way up to like one of their head coaches. And I had built up all these relationships, and a lot of their clients, they had tens of thousands of clients. And most of them were struggling and they were very macro focused. It was like hit your macros, and if you don't hit your macros, then be better at hitting your macros was the basic gist of their coaching. And I started talking to people like a human, and I was like, all of the problems that were coming up had nothing to do with macros. It was all like the stressors in their life and their work and their kids and social life. And how do I make this, fit my vacation, all these other things. So I was like, all right, that's what I want my business to be about. So I started taking more of a holistic approach and helping people with their relationship with food and kind of helping them overcome a lot of the struggles that I did. So I was in a fortunate position where I would say my first 10 clients probably came from the gym. And then like the next 15 clients, when I left Eat to Perform, I had built up those relationships. So when I started my own business, a lot of them wanted to come over and work with me right out of the gate. So I actually scaled really quickly because I had kind of that network of people who knew who I was and started reaching out once they were like, wait a minute, you're no longer with this other company. How do we keep working with you? Because you're the only one that listens. You're the only one that actually asks how I'm doing outside of just, did I hit my macros? And that was really what started my nutrition coaching business with a pretty quick start.
That's similar to me as well. It wasn't necessarily like the personal training that did it. I did do personal training too, but I was using Instagram as just like a way to document my journey to the platform and then competing. And so I was kind of always the fit friend. But I think one thing that you mentioned, because people are going to listen to this and think, oh, well, I don't personal trainer, I don't have that connection, whatever. Wherever you're at right now, you are likely the fit friend. You are the one that people are like stalking and wanting to know what you buy and what you eat. You're the one in the break room where they're like, oh, eating a salad again. Like, you know what I mean? Like all that shit's happening. And so I think people immediately assume that when they go online, it's like, only DM and they forget how to be a fucking human in real life, right? Like I always say, tell 10 people every day what you do. Like find a way to do it, you know? And so I like that you said, yeah, I had a community, but you built that, right? Like you built that through connection. And I think that so much connection is missing because you put this stupid fucking phone in your hand and think that like that's the only way to grow a business.
Yeah, like the warm network exists when people are like first pivoting to online, and usually what I tell them is take advantage of your warm network. They're like, "Oh, I don't have a warm network." And like, I promise you, you have a warm network. There are people that are paying attention that you don't know are paying attention. When I first announced that I had a new company, I got people who I went to college with, that I went to high school with, that I hadn't spoke. I had no idea that they were paying attention to anything that I was doing, but they were hitting me up and were like, "Hey, this is something that I've been wanting to do, and I know you from when we went to school together, so let's talk." And everybody has that warm network of people who have been paying attention. And even if you feel like you haven't been as active on social media, like locally, just talk to your friends. And I think sometimes it's just a matter of, like you said, telling people what you do, but also including them in the process of like when like my hairdresser, like she asks me all the time and like doesn't understand what nutrition coaching is. And I was like, well, let me ask you this. Like, what would you want if you were trying to improve your health and fitness? What would you want in a program? And now it's all of a sudden like they start talking about the things that are important to them. I'm like, yeah, exactly what you just said. That's what we do. And so you almost get those people to sell themselves when you're just like, what would you want? What would be helpful for you? And a lot of times it's like, well, I would want somebody to hold me accountable for my workouts and tell me what I should eat and how much I should eat. And you're like, great. That's it. I don't even have to explain it anymore. You know exactly what it is. If you're interested or you know anybody that's interested, just think of me. And it's a really easy way to get the first 10 clients.
I mean, and that's perfect too, because a lot of new coaches, they don't know how to really elevator pitch their offer, right? And so they're hiding behind the whole, well, we do this weekly and this daily and this monthly. It's like by asking somebody what they want, you just repeat it back to them. Like you've already got them saying what they want in their voice, right? So, moving into, I think one of your specialties, right? Like email marketing. One question that I get all the time, things that we're constantly working on with clients is just starting an email list. I think it can be really intimidating for a lot of coaches. And one thing that I see, and let me know if you see this too, but I could have a client that is great at captions. Like they're great at storytelling, and then they go to write an email, and I'm like, is this the same fucking person? Like it turns into like robot mode. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you see this, but how do you like teach somebody brand new, like, okay, let's start an email list. Give me kind of like step one, step two.
Yeah. So I like to start with the like minimum viable product. Let's keep this as simple as possible. Just start collecting email addresses on a spreadsheet. Like, don't even get into software, CRMs, all that stuff. We can talk about how easy all that is. But like step one, because a lot of people think they have to have everything in place before they begin. Like, if you are communicating with people and giving out resources or doing free trainings or challenges or anything that you could exchange an email for, just ask, like, hey, I have this resource. I thought of you. I thought it might be helpful. Are you interested? They say, yes, great. What's the best email address to send it to? They give you your email, you put it in a spreadsheet. Like that's it. Literally just collect the names, collect the email addresses. And I think that removes all of the, well, I don't know how to use this software or that software. I don't know how to do audit. Like that's people always try to jump like 10 steps ahead. It's like basic. Let's just collect the names. And then when it comes to actually writing, I always tell people like, yes, I have frameworks and I have, a process that we use. But at the end of the day, if you could just solve one problem for one person, that's it. Write about that. Just pick one problem that your audience has. Think of one individual, even if you just pull from client experience, like what was the thing that you helped your client solve this past week? And just tell that story of what the problem was, how you solved it, and that's it. Like the end. That's better than 99% of coaches. And the reason why I love email so much is because most coaches really do suck at it. So for me personally, when I'm like posting on social media, I feel like I'm competing against the best of the best in content creation. I'm like, how am I ever going to compete with people like yourself and all these like creative, hilarious, engaging people? And I'm like, yeah, I'm introverted and I'm not all that interesting. But like when it comes to email, like I have no competition because everybody sucks. So if we could just get you to like a C-level email writer, you're better than 99% of coaches out there. And it really is an area where there's so much opportunity and not a lot of coaches capitalizing on it.
I agree. And based on where a client is coming from in terms of like if you're a solopreneur versus if you have a VA or whatever, I think everyone wants to jump ahead to like systems, which is also, in my opinion, it used to be mindset was the buzzword. Now it's like systems and automation, systems automations. And I'm like, okay, like, yes, you need all of this at some point, but messy action gets you so much more momentum in the beginning. Like you could be a perfectionist later, but you got to get that momentum going. And so, like you said, if you're randomly emailing some PDFs, but you're getting somebody's email, fine. Like you don't need a perfect funnel in the beginning, right? As long as you were talking to people and talking to humans. But you said something that I really love, and that's the storytelling of just thinking about what a client did that week, right? And so, anyone that's ever struggling with content ideas, I always say give yourself 2 minutes at the end of every day. Just like set a timer and ask yourself three questions. What is one conversation you had with a client today? Just think of one because one's going to come up, right? Whether it was good or bad, think about that. Cool. Write it down. What's the lesson? Number two, what is something that made you roll your eyes today? Like something that was just like, what the heck? You saw it at the gym, you saw it on social media, whatever. And then what is something that happened today that made you realize how far you've come? That way, like you've got the education, you've got something that's a little polarizing, like, and then you've got a testimonial, right? But if you do that every fucking day and just put it on your notes app, you will have so many ideas by the time you actually go to write something versus, oh, I think I should talk about eating more protein today. And that's when you get the generic shit that doesn't convert, right? Like I think storytelling, people try to make it into this big, like Dear Diary kind of a thing. And it's really just a few sentences to connect. Because I'm sure you'll share about this too, and like writing the email up, right? But it's like if you open up an email and the first sentence is, hey Mike, so excited you're gonna join the challenge. I'm out.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean? Like, how do you coach somebody to just like format an email? Let's say we're talking about like a nurture email, not a hard pitch, but just something to kind of keep them engaged.
Yeah. So we always start with the order of importance, which is you got to get somebody to open it. So we need a compelling subject line. And then I look at the first line of the email as an extension of that because our attention spans are getting less and less. So we have to like get them to open it and then we have to grab attention immediately with the first line. And they kind of go hand in hand. They can be related. Sometimes it can be the exact same line. So you don't have to overthink it. It's like something that's going to hook you in that either is a controversial take, something that's a problem that you want solved, or it's a dream that you want to achieve, something that grabs you in. So like if we were talking about this topic, I'd be like, here's how to get everyone in your audience to open your next email. That's my subject line on like, that's just, I'm telling you what's going to happen. And it's something that you want to know as a coach. So you're going to click in and be like, if you want your emails to attract the right types of clients, here's exactly how to make that happen. There's my opener. Now you know what the email is about to deliver. So I'm just giving you an insight that's something that we know is important. So for somebody who wants to maybe improve body composition, it's like, if you struggle with binge eating every single Saturday, here is a method that I helped my client Susie to stop that in its tracks. Then now we know what we're going to learn. We're going to learn how to stop binge eating every Saturday. If somebody has that pain point, of course, they're going to keep reading. So then we want to like present like zoom out a little bit and be like, all right, here's the overarching view of the problem. What's the problem that we're talking about? It's binge eating every Saturday. So like a lot of clients who are trying to lose fat understand that a calorie deficit is necessary for fat loss, but they end up self-sabotaging themselves every single weekend because they binge eat for a number of reasons. It's usually stress or emotional eating or whatever. And you find yourself frustrated starting over every Monday. If that sounds like you, here's something that I did with my client that works really well. And I want you to try it because this is value based. So you're just giving it away. I want you to try this and tell me if it works next Saturday. Put this in place. Tell me if it works. Here's what it is. Then you deliver the goods. Tell them exactly the solution. So now You've identified a problem that they can relate to. You've shown them that you actually work with clients and that you help them solve this problem. And then you deliver the solution. And that's it. Hope this helps. Hit reply if this makes sense or if you have any questions, sign off. So that's the most basic formula is like identify the problem, give them the 30,000 foot view of why it's a problem, or even better, if you can identify like some of the things that they may have tried that haven't been successful. So you know that they know that you understand kind of the things that they've already been told, like conventional wisdom, why that doesn't work, and then tell them what does work. If you just do that and you write literally just one email a week to start, you will be light years ahead of most coaches.
Light years. Oh, yes, if you write one, I get a lot of coaches that come to me saying, "Oh, I do a newsletter once a month."
Yeah.
And for some reason, I just like don't love that. I just like I'm like, you gotta talk to them a little more than once a month, my dude. And like there's too much in there. Like you're putting so much emphasis on that one newsletter. It's like saying I pitch once a month and
Yeah.
don't get clients.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, no shit. Right. I'm going to track my macros once a month and see if I lose weight in my deficit. You know what I'm saying? Like what? I like that. I think that there's so much that we could talk about. We could have a whole podcast on just subject lines because people stress so much. And so I don't know what your tips are, but mine are always get the email done or the caption done. And then whichever line made you kind of think, ooh, okay, like make that your subject line. Like don't start with that. Don't start with the tagline, right? Like I think that that can make it challenging.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you work, but I think for most people, if you know what problem you're solving and you could just write it, then yeah, get the bulk of the email done. And if there's something that stood out to you, or a good thing is to actually, when you reread something, or if you listen to yourself, like if it's a video, if we're talking about content in general, the emotional response that you get is typically the same emotional response that somebody else will get. There will be a subset of your audience that gets that same trigger. Like if you're reading it and you're like, "Oh man, that just gave me the chills," or you're like, "Man, that really hit home." Somebody else is going to have that same feeling. So pay attention if you're reading your own stuff when you have an emotional response to it, like bottle that up and use that because there will be other people that have that same reaction. So a lot of times that's what I'll do. If I'm reading somebody, I have the ability if a client submits an email or a piece of content for me to review, and they're like, I need a stronger hook, I need a stronger headline, I need a stronger subject line. I'll just read the thing. And then when I get an emotional reaction, I'm like, okay, here's the piece that I just need to extract the bullet point. We use that as the hook or we use that as the headline or the subject line. It makes it a lot easier. So some people prefer to start with that. I think that it's easier to like actually read it, get your own response from it, and then put the subject line together from there.
I agree. And I think people are trying so hard to be an expert at that. And it's like, listen, if you don't have a writing background or any of that, or this doesn't come natural to you, it's going to frustrate you so much to just like think of a bunch of hooks. You know what I mean? I think at first you need to like be able to articulate how you get the results that you do and also tell your story because so many coaches cannot for the life of them share any kind of vulnerability. So you were talking about subject lines for like binge eating and how, Sally overcame that or whatever, right? I also would say make a subject line that time I binge ate last Saturday or when I binge ate on Thanksgiving or that time I did fasted cardio so I could binge eat a pie on Thanksgiving. Whatever, right? Like make it a thing. But it's like when you share your story, you all of a sudden in the mind of your viewers get off that pedestal and become relatable, right? And I think that so many coaches can like find so much with themselves and they don't.
Yeah, those you brought up two really good points. So my highest converting, one of my highest converting email subject lines ever was how a broke bartender lost 100 pounds, which was myself. So I was talking about me. It was just positioning myself in a way that my audience wasn't going to immediately know that it was me, but it was like I was a broke bartender and I also lost 100 pounds. So it was like how a broke bartender lost 100 pounds, dot, dot, dot. And they were like, oh, I want to hear this story. And then they start to realize, oh, you're talking about yourself. So putting your own personal story. So I talk about like five different buckets of content. One of them is just connection content, like be you, be human, tell your story, show your personality, your quirks, your hobbies, your values, put yourself in your content. And then the other thing you mentioned was being able to articulate the way that you get results. And I feel like that right there is what separates coaches in a crowded space. So like, well, you mentioned like, oh, should I just talk about protein? Like you sound like everybody else. What helps you separate yourself is being able to articulate your methodology for getting client results. And it's just being very clear. And like I have these three phases that I take my clients through, or I do this, this, and this to get this outcome, and being very specific about how you get results. That is something that like, especially when it comes to email, like that conditions your audience that they're always looking at your methodology as the missing piece and the thing that they need. And that gets them to raise their hand and hit reply and like, tell me more. Do you have openings right now? Can I fill out an application? So that's something that I help people all the time, is being able to bridge the solutions. Like when you're talking about a problem, you give a solution, and then can we bridge it to your methodology? Like that's why all of my clients do this, this, and this to get this outcome. And it just like conditions them to always come back to this process for getting the results that I want. And ultimately, if you do that enough, that nurture process, they start to trust you. And it's like, okay, I need this. And now they feel like I have to reach out and work with this person.
And the trust is so critical, right? Because I think that the whole like the space is saturated. That's not why you shouldn't do it. I mean, this is an industry that is only rapidly growing. However, you have to stand out. And that doesn't mean dancing on videos or any of that. It's really just how you are presenting yourself and your offer. And yes, maybe getting a little more creative than a before and after photo, right? Because that doesn't tell a story. We've been looking at before and after since the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Like we no longer we associate that with more of like a scam than we do with, oh, I can achieve that, you know? And so what I think is missing, whether we're talking about email marketing or better headlines or hell, a fucking DM strategy, whatever, people do not make the time to intentionally audit their problems, right? Like it's just, it's like this, I don't know, let me keep treading water and complain about what's going on. Where it's like, if you sat down and actually made a list on paper of pain points or however you want to teach content, which could be a whole other thing too, right? Like you would be so amazed at how much clarity you got. But if you don't ever like if you cannot articulate the brain of your ideal client in their words, right? You know what I mean? Like when you go to somebody's bio and maybe someone wants to hire you and you look at their I help statement, it's like, I help you find balance. I promise you, you're broke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's and that's the thing, you mentioned it. It's like you have to stand out, and it's not that difficult to stand out because most coaches are saying all the same shit, and it sounds like you have to remember when a client hires you, you're not the first person they've talked to. They've been down this road before, and the thing that they want is that this isn't gonna the subconscious question is, how is this different? How is this different than all the other things? So if you're just sitting here regurgitating the same stuff as everybody else, yeah, of course you're gonna blend in, you're not gonna stand out, you're not gonna make a lot of money, you're not gonna help a lot of people. But if you can articulate your process and your methodology that is different than what they've heard before, now all of a sudden there's hope. They're like, this isn't what I haven't gone through this process before. Like I have a couple that I work with, and they're always talking shit about macros. And it just, because everybody's like, you have to track macros, you have to track macros. And they're over here like, macros are unsustainable, they're obsessive, it's stressful, this is not a lifelong strategy. And they truly believe it. This isn't just a marketing thing. Like they legitimately believe this to be true. And they have a great process that they take clients through. So once they grab attention by throwing stones at macro tracking, then they can be like, here's what we do that is sustainable, that creates the lifestyle that you want. Now all of a sudden they can talk about things like balance and moderation, but it's like you hook them in with, hey, you've tried this before. If macros were the end all be all, why aren't you, lean and shredded right now? That's because it's not. So here's what you should do instead. That's what I mean where you talk about like conventional wisdom and things that they've tried that led them down the wrong path. That helps the client, the reader, know that you know their problems just as much as they do. Like that's I know the exact dialogue that's happening. I know what you're saying to yourself when you lay down at night. I know what you're saying to yourself when you look in the mirror every morning. Like that's when the content like pierces through and they're like, oh, this is the person that I want to work with.
because I think a lot of times, and I'll move on after I say this, but I think it's important to say because you're gonna probably agree. So many coaches create content for coaches unintentionally. We want to sound like the smartest person. We want to cite things. And that was totally me. Like my very first coach ever was Lane Norton. And I was like, I gotta cite these things because he's citing these things. That's like, that was my example, you know? And I realized that wasn't relatable to anybody, right? And so it's like, if you're creating content for other coaches, cute, but there has to be more than education, right? Like you have to like understand that your ideal client is not saying, I want habits. I want balance. I want food. They're not saying those things. And so if you're only saying that, they're going to look at you and say, not for me, and go, right? Like, how do you say what they're wanting and articulate that? Because again, if you don't ever take the intentional time to just like think about that, you're not going to magically have a great content strategy, right? And even if you do hire somebody like yourself, right? If that coach does not create that time for being innovative or really dialing in their message, it's going to be a wasted investment because they're not going to be able to implement what you share, you know?
Completely. And so the most common question is like, how do I figure those things out? Well, how about you ask? So many coaches are afraid to just ask the question, like even with your current clients. But I do, I validate every idea before I do it. So I'll ask my audience if I'm thinking about a training, if I'm thinking about putting together a workshop, a resource, a lead magnet, whatever it is, I will go to my audience, my email list, social media, whatever, and I'll be like, I'm thinking about doing this, this, and this to solve this, this, and this. Is that something you'd be interested in? And if I get no response, then I'm not going to waste my time because clearly they've told me they don't want that. Or what I'll do is I'll try to reposition it and I'll be like, okay, maybe it's a good idea, but the way that I phrased it isn't connecting. So let me try to position it this way and I'll put it out there again. And then if it lands, I'm like, okay, cool. That's the messaging that I need to run with. And if it doesn't land, I'm like, all right, shitty idea. Let's move on. But so many people are afraid to even just ask their current clients, like, what were you feeling before we started working together? What are you feeling now? You know, what were some of the things that kept you up at night? What were some of your biggest fears before moving forward? Why were you skeptical? Why were you excited? Like all these different things, like people will tell you. And now all of a sudden you've got those exact words to use in your marketing. And you'd be surprised how many people like take the exact words that your clients tell you and then use that in your messaging. And you'll get people like, oh my God, it's like you're inside my head. Well, yeah, I asked people just like you, and then we just used the same words back.
Yeah, right? That's the best compliment. Honestly, that's my favorite. I think also go and look at your applications. You know what I mean? Like go look at people who are putting on your applications. And anytime I, in the beginning, was either prepping for like a new offer or something different or a workshop or whatever, I would put out a market research post. I would ask somebody to comment. I'd ask 3 questions. I'd say, comment if you're interested, and I'll give you coffee for hopping on a 15-minute call. And it was honestly me just to figure out what people were saying, thinking, seeing, feeling. And it wasn't a sales call. They really weren't. Some people ended up being clients from that, but like that wasn't what it was for. So I want to go into some kind of like, we can go back and forth if you want, but just some business coaching funsies. So what is some advice that you previously gave that you don't now? Like what's outdated? Like what's some business coaching advice? You're like, man, I used to say that. And like, I don't agree with that anymore.
Oh, that's a good one. So, you know what it was? I used to be against two things. Now that you say that, this will be fun. So, number one, I used to be like totally anti low ticket anything. Like you're wasting your time, low ticket doesn't work. And I used to talk shit about ads too because I had spent a fuck ton of money on ads and wasted at least 6 figures on ads that didn't work. But it wasn't that ads don't work. It was that I had the wrong strategy. And once I figured out what does work, it was it's like saying like fasting doesn't work or keto doesn't, like it's the application for the right person, the right, you have to have the strategy that fits the business. So those were two things that I learned, that low ticket can work depending on the business model. Ads absolutely work. You just need the right strategy. So those are two things that I've come full circle on.
Nice. This is without me thinking too deep. The one that comes to mind is I used to tell new coaches to pitch every day. Like pitch every day, everyday pitch, hard pitch. And like that worked though years ago. You know what I mean? And now it's like, hey, pitch less, be chill, be more subtle, like be more subtle. Let's like maybe create a few more resources and have fun with email marketing and things like that. But I think the way that I create content today is so different than, 5, 6 years ago. And I mean, I think it is for everybody, but that's like the first thing I can think of that really comes to mind is that. And I think the second thing is I used to be totally on board. This is probably still controversial, but I used to think that it was okay to hire a VA like super early, right? Like, yeah, for sure. And I didn't do this personally. What I was finding is that I would get clients just honestly would get to a certain point and like truly didn't want to put the work in anymore, right? And so the easy button was like VA. The problem is you can't lead yourself and you can't lead the VA and the VA quit. What the client thinks is, you led me in the wrong path and I need a different mentor, right? And so it's just like, I think people hire way too early, especially positions like business managers. Like, bro, what do you have to manage in your business? You're barely making a quarter million. Do you know what I mean? Like I know that sounds like a big amount for some people, but like that person sees no stability in your business if that's, you know what I mean? Like so I think for me it's the way that I go about pitching is very different and the thought process behind hiring. People hire setters way too early. So
Completely. Yeah, those are good ones. Definitely hiring too soon. And then it's funny because I feel like the customer buying cycle has extended a bit. I think just like more trust is necessary, skepticism's a bit higher. People are kind of burnt out with all the big, bold promises and the guarantees and everything that, a lot of businesses started to run with, and it worked for a period of time. But now I think the marketplace is catching up and is a little bit more sophisticated. So you need to earn their trust. You need to show them that you actually know what you're talking about and you can get the results that you say you can. But I find that it's two businesses that we run into frequently for coaches is either they've pitched way too much and they've just completely burnt out their audience, or they're afraid to pitch and they're like sitting on an audience and it's like, do they have any idea that you actually have an offer? And like, no. So like I find that coaches typically fall into one of those two buckets where they've just totally burnt out their audience because they just offer, or they're on the other end of the spectrum where they're so afraid to make an offer that they're sitting on a gold mine, they don't realize it.
and everything is so obviously subjective based on like the business owners, right? So if I get a brand new coach and maybe they've been competing for a while and their followers know that, I don't give a shit if you have 50 followers, okay? Like there's someone that's going to buy in there, right? I will tell that person to pitch every day because they need to get over the hurdle of like getting on camera and talking and saying things. But yes, to your extent, like I don't pitch every single day, but I make sure, and this is something that you can tell me your thoughts on, but I make sure that if somebody is watching my stories every single day, they're going to see some kind of like success in some form that it works. They're going to see something that teaches them whatever, and something that's like a fun thing about me, just something that shows personality, right? Every day is not perfect, but just know that if you tell me the DMs don't work and I go and look at your story and it's just reposts of other coaches, I know exactly why it's not working because they went to your shit and said, I don't care, right? Like, I think it just all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
What is the last pep talk you gave yourself?
You actually commented on it. So I had posted about recognizing that what got me here will not get me there. And we're at a point now with my business, with my email marketing membership, that's called The Collective, and it grew very quickly. This is actually just 1 year. It started March 1st of 2024. So we're 1 year in. We have 500 coaches in that community, which was, I did not expect things to grow that quickly, but we've reached a point where I'm the type of person that's more of like just get shit done and get it done quickly. I'm more of like a speed to implement person. And that has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. So because I've been so quick, there's a lot of things that have needed to get done, like more official branding and like, filing for my trademark and like doing just like little detail stuff that I hate, and having, we talk about like systems in place and making sure that everything is buttoned up because we have a huge partnership that we're getting ready to roll out that will probably double the size of our membership, and like being able to have the people in place and the systems in place and the like very buttoned up front facing, like we have great customer service, but the front end needs to match the back end. And so this was like, all right, Mike, you got to get your shit together because you move quickly, but you're letting things slip through the cracks. And like you need to treat this now as if it's a 10, 20, $50 million business, since that's where I see it going. But like stop playing small, stop just cutting corners and trying to be so fast with everything. Like let's actually take our time and treat this as if it's that level 8-figure business now. Like own it, be that way now, and then like let's go, because it's the next level, and it's this is something that I've known for a while, and I've just been kind of like getting by with the way that I operate and moving quickly and just taking action and solving problems and putting out fires. Like that's not going to get me to the next level. So that was the last pep talk. Was all right. Let's get our shit together.
No, I love there's so much you said in that that's like gold, because the first thing is that you mentioned like I see this being like an 8-figure business, right? And but there's like 500 people and it's a fairly, I mean, it's a very affordable offer. And I bring that up because you are so like, you can see the vision. And I'm going to tell you guys listening right now, it's not going to be day one. It's not going to be below 10K months, but like, if you don't see where the fuck you want to take this thing to some extent, the first time you have a problem or a team member quit, you're going to be like, is it really worth it? And I feel like if I ask you, Mike, like, have you ever thought about quitting? You're going to be like, fuck no. I just like find the problem and solve it. Like, I've truly never thought about like quitting the business. I think like this is fucking hard, but I love that pep talk because it's so simple. And I had the same one a few days ago, which is it was I think the same day you posted, I was like, damn, man. I caught myself saying like, fuck, why does this feel so hard today? Why is it so fucking hard? And then I was like, it's because it is. Because you've already gotten to a place that was really fucking hard. Now you want to go even further? Like, of course it is. You know what I mean? I always like to think the universe is like, you sure you want it? Are you sure you
Yeah.
want it? Like,
Yeah.
just testing us to make sure. But it's needed sometimes, I mean, I always say that like success is not earned. Like just because you've been doing something for a long time, you don't get a gold star.
Yeah, yeah, there's an important reframe here, which I found to be helpful. So this was not my own. This was something that a mentor told me. But a lot of times we look at the vision and we come from a place of like I want a 7-figure business. I want 10K months. I want 100 clients. And when you say I want, it's coming from a place of not currently having. So it's actually from a place of lack. Like I don't have it. I want this thing out there. And so what my mentor told me was every time you catch yourself in the I want, just switch it to how can I? So it's a really simple switch because you actually go into more active and proactive. How can I have 10K months? How can I have a 6-figure, 7-figure business? How can I work with 100 clients? And now you go into solutions mode, and it's not, I don't have it and I want it. Now I have this like lack feeling, like I want this thing, I don't have it. So that makes me feel shitty. But it's more, how can I? Okay, now I'm in like the mindset of doing and figuring out and solutions oriented. So every time I catch myself, I try to reframe it and put it more into how can, and then like, all right, now it's time to do, because now we can see the path to get there.
The other important thing that you mentioned was that you're really taking the time to slow down. And I think that so many coaches get so caught up. And I know this was me several years ago. I didn't realize it, but when you first start to get that level of success and you see those numbers, as somebody, for me, like I grew up watching my dad like save money and hide money. And we weren't poor by any means, but like we didn't have extra, you know what I mean? And so I was always told at a young age that like I would never be rich, I would never have money. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I was a journalist where I didn't make money either. So, you said slow down and speed up. And I don't want any of you listening to be afraid of that, because you're going to have so many moments in your business of intentional plateaus, which doesn't mean you have to slow momentum down. But if you don't take a beat and hire the right people, right? I feel like it's either rushing hires, sloppy systems, cheaping out on this, and it's going to bite you in the ass. It's going to. I think so many coaches get so stuck because they have the wrong people in the wrong places for way too long, or they avoid hiring. I mean, I'm sure you see that.
Yeah, and we're actually the most susceptible to that after a record month. So there's this like paradigm, best month, worst month paradigm, where like after our best month, we are actually the most susceptible because you probably made a lot of offers, you had a successful launch, you did a lot, and you're like, oh my God, I hit this revenue PR. And then your brain tells you this is going to be the forever floor. Like we think our ceiling is now our floor and we start acting accordingly. So we start spending more money and like, oh, I can pump more money into ads. I can hire this person. I can hire a setter. I can hire a closer. And then all of a sudden the revenue comes crashing down, but the expenses have skyrocketed and you're like, I have no profit left over. So the best time to actually take a beat and slow down is counter to your natural instincts after that high revenue month. Don't think that you're just going to keep pushing the gas pedal and go like next month PR, next month PR. If it happens, great. But it's really a good time to even think about your systems, think about playing a little defense, looking at your expenses, just making sure you're taking care of the like risk mitigation instead of always trying to push the gas pedal after a record month. So I found so many coaches where they hit that milestone. They're like, holy shit, I did it. And then they're like, this, they start to act as if that's the new normal. That's like when you hit a deadlift PR, that's like, oh, tomorrow I'm going to hit that for 10. It's not going to work that way. You're going to throw out your bag and get injured. So it's the same thing with your business. Once you hit that PR, that doesn't mean that the next month you're going to hit it for 10. Like just let's play a little defense sometimes.
No, totally. I agree. And again, it's taking the time and making the time to do that. I think that, coaches that are telling me they don't have time, like, I don't have time to do X or this. It's like I don't have time to do anything. I make the time to do it. Truly. Like I'm sure you and I are constantly busy all day, right? But we make time for things that are important and you're going to constantly be fighting for time the bigger you grow because more people need your time then, right? So, what is the worst advice you've seen lately or something where you're like, I don't agree with that?
Huh. Uh, I think that there's like these frameworks that have been plastered all over. I don't know if a lot of coaches are like I feel like I'm in a bubble with what type of stuff I see, but I feel like there's these like quick cash money grab frameworks that people run all the time and it's like heavy discounts and scholarships and different promotions and um people are overusing them and abusing them to the point that it's just they're ruining the goodwill with their audience. So they can work and they can be effective. And it's something that if it's strategic, great. But I think that what I've seen way too much is like making the huge discount or promotional offer or the like big giveaway and not recognizing like where does this live within my marketing ecosystem as a whole instead of just like, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of clients tomorrow and try and like you're draining goodwill. So like when you run something like that, and I use an example of a company that I actually really like the product, but they just run discounts all the time where I'll never pay full price. Like I will legitimately wait. We even had this weekend, we were like, oh, we need to order more. And my wife was like, just wait, they'll send a text. And literally the next day it was like 25% off coupon. Here you go. I'm like, all right, there we go. We're going to use that now. So like, it's just because they over abuse it. So I'm seeing that in the coaching space now where a lot of people are teaching these cash grab frameworks and it's just being overused and their audience is catching on and they're like, well, shit, why would I pay full price when you give away free months all the time and you give, 20% off discounts and you do all these other things? I'm not going to ever join your program unless there's a promotion like this. So I would just be cautious with be very intentional and understand where it fits within your entire marketing calendar. Don't just get caught up in the, quick cash because you can enroll a bunch of clients today. It might impact your marketing down the road.
Agreed, totally. I think that sales are, when you run a sale out of scarcity, it never is good. End of story. Like if you're just trying to run a sale to make a quick few dollars, not great. But I agree. I would say there's two. One isn't new necessarily, but and I don't know what your thoughts are, but you're still a fitness coach, so maybe you'll agree. This whole like charging $1,000 a month for online coaching is insane to me. Like, why? What? You've literally never worked with somebody in your entire life and you're giving them macros. Like, first of all, I- cool, but like I need to be able to sleep at night. I don't love that. So that to me is like not my favorite. I am proud to say that like I have charged 3 to 350 a month for a very long time and I don't really care, right? There are certain people that I know can charge more due to authority and expertise and whatever. But if you're a brand new coach starting out, I will oftentimes just tell somebody to charge 150 bucks. Just get some confidence in the, you know what I mean? 100 bucks. I don't really give a shit. Just get somebody in the door to pay you. So you're like, I got money, right? Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
Completely agree. I
okay.
think the raise your rates thing is just like that's like every business coach's first piece of advice. They're like double your that happened to me. I paid in 2019. I joined a program. It was like a $40,000 mastermind. Literally, first thing they were like double your price, and if you sell the same amount at this price, you're gonna double your. And I'm like, yeah, but the math isn't working because my close percentage is probably going to go down, and my coaches don't feel comfortable at that price point. Like it just didn't make sense, and so there's so much value in building that momentum and hearing yes. Even if you are undercharging, that's fine. But if you get, five people in a row that say yes and there's no objection, like, great. All right. Now you can consider, is this the right price point? I feel like it's better to set yourself up where you can increase your rate slowly over time than like overshooting it and having to backtrack and hearing no a bunch and be like, why isn't anybody taking my 5K offer? Like, yeah, because you're,
Well, yes, exactly. And it's funny because if I get a coach that has been doing this for years and has a roster of 50 clients and assistant coaches with full rosters and are charging 200 bucks, yeah, I'm probably going to raise your rates, right? But to the person who's like, "Oh, I'm charging $800 a month," and I'm like, "What's your retention?" And it's like, "Oh, well, 3 months," right? I'm like, "Well, what the fuck," right? So the second part of the shit advice is when coaches use a firm, I'm all for it for like a high ticket offer or a course or whatever. But if you get somebody for a one-to-one fitness coaching offer, how are they going to keep working with you after the initial contract, right? And then you're going to not get the results you want, not get the marketing you want. Like it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like you have to, if you can't sell 200, 300 bucks, we got to work on your sales. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like that's that.
Yeah, completely. That kills the resign, the retention. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. One boundary that maybe you have now that you didn't used to have in your business.
Oh man, 1000% like my time and giving away free, like, hey, do you mind if I send you this thing and you can take a look at it for me? Like all the time. People who are like not paying me money or whatever, and they're like, hey, I built this landing page, or I saw your training on email. I'm wondering if you can look at my email and see if I'm on the right track. And I just be like, sure, send it over. Like all the time, doing whatever anybody. Yeah. So boundaries in general with my time. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm trying to snap out of that because it is a very toxic trait that has gotten me in trouble in my life. So there's an active trying to work on thing, but I'm light years ahead of where I was. So now I'm like, hey, to maintain the integrity of what I do for my clients, that's kind of my go-to line. Maintain the integrity of what I do for my clients. I can't review your email. That's something that's a paid service. I'm happy to send you more information about my membership. That's, it's a $97 a month thing. So it's like, I don't feel bad just being like, hey, you should just enroll. If this is what you're looking for, you should pay the 97 and join.
What about a boundary with your clients?
Uh, I would say, I mean, it's pretty similar, like being around the clock available, people, expecting like sending me things to review at 6 o'clock at night on a Friday and feeling like I have to do it right away. Um, Same type of thing. It's like the time, like respect the time, like, hey, if you send this on a Friday night, you'll get it on Monday at this time, and just setting the expectations on turnaround time for certain things. And it's very similar. So it's just really being protective of my time and letting them know the expectation of, if you're going to send me something on a weekend, if you're going to send me something at night, whatever, here's the expected turnaround time.
I think a lot of coaches struggle with boundaries in general. One, because they feel like if they just over deliver the fuck out of a client, no one's gonna leave, right? But really, all it does is cause you so much more anxiety, so much more anxiety. When I was first fitness coaching in the beginning, I didn't know any better, and so I used my cell phone, right? Like everyone had my cell phone number. I didn't know that I needed an app, and all it takes is one person on a Saturday to be like, "Hey, I need to cancel."
Yeah.
To be like, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock. Why are you sending this on a Saturday? Right. But I agree with you. I also used to be that person that would check late at night on Friday just to make sure everything was good before the weekend because I would have stress about that. But now I pretty much take a half day on Fridays. And like if a client's sending me an email sequence at 2 p.m. on a Friday, they know it's going to take a minute. But I agree. I think so many coaches are just afraid to implement that. But then when I ask them the same question, like, hey, would you expect your coach to respond? Well, no. Well, okay, let's talk about this. Um, so these are just kind of like random questions for you to kind of wrap up. But what are you listening to when you work out?
It's either a podcast
Oh,
or hip hop, one or the two. So I'm either
like
in
Spotify?
yeah, on Spotify. Yeah,
Do you have your phone with you?
I do.
Can you tell me what your day list title is? I love playing this game.
Let me see.
Do you use day lists? Because I'm curious to know what yours is.
Where do I find my day list
So
title?
in the search, just
Yeah.
literally search like DAYLIST and it'll pop up if you've never opened it. And it'll say day list Spotify made for you or something.
All right. Day list
But
Spotify made for
what is
you.
the title of yours?
Conscious hip hop rhymes afternoon.
I like that for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like fairly accurate? It changes every 3 to 4 hours, so you should look at it.
It is accurate. So just looking at it, there's Lil Wayne, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Joey Badass, ASAP Rocky, Corday, all people that I listen to. So it's pretty spot on.
Mine is angry alternative metal Monday afternoon. So
That's it.
ours are both accurate. I love that. Okay, cool. Apparently, I listen to a lot of metal on Mondays, but that's always, I'd like to know like, what somebody's day list is. So now you can ask your clients. It's a really fun icebreaker, honestly. What is a hobby outside of fitness that people may not know about you?
A hobby outside of fitness, I mean, my favorite thing is to travel. So that's
Where's your next trip?
the next trip will be to the Bahamas in April. And so we're actually doing um, with another couple, we're going to the Bahamas, and then my wife and I, just the two of us, are staying in Miami because we had to connect in Miami. So we were like, when we come back, why don't we just get an Airbnb and spend the week in Miami after? So the Bahamas is only 3 nights, and then we'll have a week in Miami after that, or like the rest of the week. So it's a week total.
That'll be
Uh,
so fun.
yeah. So
Okay, last two things. How do you unwind after a really high stress day? So, and when I say like a stressful day, I mean there were fires, there were problems that you couldn't get solved in the same day. Like business just is really heavy. Like, how do you separate that so you can go home and be a good partner, be a good friend, just like really shut that down?
yeah, that is a challenge. So I have three stepkids, and when they're with us, they spend a week with us and then a week with their dad. So we're a week on, week off. If it's just my wife and I and we don't have the kids, then it's a little bit easier just to like unwind, sit on the couch. We'll watch like some mindless TV or a movie or something, and we can just chill. If the kids are with us, then I still need to be like active and engaged in whatever. So I really just I try more to just like be present because it takes me out of like business owner mode and more into like stepdad. They're at really good ages where we have good relationship and I can ask about whatever I need to just like be focused on them. So we'll honestly like a lot of times we'll just sit around the dinner table and just crack jokes and laugh and hang out and play with our dogs and whatever. So that's typically what I will do is just get out of the mode of business owner and into like stepdad family mode. And my dogs, I should say, are such great de-stress. There are a lot. We have three of them, but they're definitely helpful when things get stressful.
No, I get that. I mean, I just think that's so important because I know so many business owners struggle to balance the level of scale they want while managing a relationship. And I am by no means an expert in any of that, but I think that that's important to hear how other people kind of like navigate that. I have a checklist when I shut my work down for the day, right? Where it's like I time block for the next day, I do one more email sweep, and then I at least know, okay, tomorrow's taken care of. I did what I can today, but like that's it, right? Because I feel like we could work into oblivion and still have more things on our to-do list. Like I could always work and find something to do. And that's something that I want everyone to hear is like you will never check off everything on your fucking list.
Yeah, I know. I said that last week. I was like, this was the most productive week I've had, and I feel like I got nothing done. Like I was nonstop.
Yes.
And I was like, how in the hell have I been working so much this week? And I feel like I've accomplished nothing, but I did. I was very productive. It's just there's always more. There's always more to do. So having that cutoff time and being like, all right, today I got everything that I could possibly get done today, and then set myself up again for tomorrow. So I like that. I like having the checklist there.
Yeah. Okay, last thing. What is your best advice for a coach who's still struggling to hit their first 10K month?
The best advice, typically they, I'm just going to be real. If you haven't hit 10K months, it's because your like daily actions are not up to par with what you need to hit 10K consistently. And to be even more real, it's not that difficult. Like it's simple. It's hard. Business is hard, but it's simple. And you probably already know the area that you're lacking. There's probably something that you're thinking about that's like, yeah, you know what? Like I am kind of half-assing my content. Like I haven't even started an email list. I'm afraid to make offers. I'm not having any conversations with people. And like it's not an if you build it, they will come situation. You have to be active and engaged and like proactive. So one of the things that I do with clients is we have a call that we call the arena. And the arena is like you actually have to go in the arena and do shit and like have some battle scars and like come back with some blood and tell us what happened. Like I took your advice and I did the damn thing and now you're coming to the arena to tell me what happened. I don't want to know what you're going to do. I want to know what you did. And then based off of what you did, I'm going to tell you the next thing to do. Then you're going to go back into the arena and you're going to come and tell me. So it's like you already know there are certain things that you have to do. You have to be consistent with your content, with conversations with leads. You have to be generating calls and closing calls. You have to deliver a really good service.
If you can't do the daily things, you don't fucking deserve to have a six-figure business.
That's it. And you probably know where it's lacking. So the reality check is you already know. You already know what you're not doing. And so if you want to hit 10K and you're frustrated because you haven't, get real with yourself and start doing the shit that needs to get done.
Boom, the end. I mean, that's what I was hoping you were kind of going to say, honestly.
I mean, that's the reality.
Same there.
And again, it's not like that's not a knock on anybody because it is hard. But like it's really the same thing. It's like what you would tell a client. Like a client's like, I'm so frustrated because I'm not losing weight. And they're like barely tracking, they miss workouts, they're not checking in consistently. Like they're like, like, hey, you just gotta do the things that you know will move the needle. And we all, if we can get real with ourselves, we know the things that we're lacking.
Absolutely. And there's always going to be something. But to me, that first 10K, it is there are lacking habits, right? There are habits that haven't been built. That really is what it is. Because going from maintaining 10, once you've gotten that, those habits get you to 20, 30, 40, 50, right? Like those are still the habits you have all the way. There are habits that I still perform today that I was doing day, 300, right? And so I think that people are always looking for the next funnel framework, this, that, but it's like if you can't show up unconditionally for your business, you don't deserve to have it,
Completely.
you
Yeah.
know? So, Mike, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it, dude. And
Thanks.
I'm going to link Mike's Instagram below so you can check him out and see what he's all about. And apparently get some good, tough love, like what you're going to find on my page. So I love that. Mike, anything else you want to add?
No, this was awesome. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you having me. And yeah, if anybody has questions, we I actually respond to all of my DMs. It's not somebody else pretending to be me or anything like that. And like those are the things like having conversations matter. That's one of the low-hanging fruit. Like talk to people, talk to your audience, talk to your clients, be a human, connect. So if anybody has questions or needs anything, I'm always available and I do respond.
Just don't send him an email sequence to look at for free, though.
Not that.